The conventional design of any complex system prioritizes the resistance to stress and shock. This approach, however, overlooks a more dynamic and potent property. Some things do not just survive volatility, they require it to improve. This is the core concept of antifragility, a quality beyond resilience where a system actively gains from disorder, randomness, and stressors. Antifragility reframes our understanding of strength. It postulates that the truly durable systems are not those that remain unchanged by chaos, but those that are structured to evolve and strengthen because of it. This principle identifies a fundamental property present in everything from biological evolution to economic markets. To understand this concept, one must first grasp a simple framework: the triad of fragile, robust, and antifragile. The fragile is easily identified. Consider a porcelain teacup. It seeks tranquility and shatters under a small amount of unexpected stress. The fragile hates volatility and is harmed by it. Next is the robust, which is often mistaken for the ideal state. A robust system, like a solid steel beam, resists shock and remains unchanged up to a certain threshold. It is indifferent to volatility within its operational limits. It endures stress, but it does not learn or improve from the experience. Finally, there is the antifragile. This is the precise opposite of the fragile. The antifragile benefits from shocks, volatility, and stressors. A clear illustration is the Hydra from Greek mythology. When one of its heads was severed, two grew back in its place. It became stronger through attack, actively gaining from harm. This brings us to a critical distinction with resilience. Resilience is the capacity to absorb a shock and return to the original state. It is a property of robust systems. It describes the ability to withstand damage and recover functionality, but the system itself does not fundamentally improve. Consider a memory foam mattress. It endures pressure, deforms under the weight, and then bounces back to its initial form once the pressure is removed. The mattress survives the stress event intact. It does not, however, become a better mattress because of the experience. To deconstruct antifragility further, we can observe it in biology through the principle of hormesis. Hormesis is a dose-response phenomenon where a low, non-lethal dose of a stressor, such as a toxin or radiation, induces a beneficial and adaptive effect on the organism. The system responds to a minor threat by enhancing its overall defenses. The most intuitive example of this mechanism is weightlifting. The act of lifting a heavy weight is a direct stressor. It causes microscopic tears and damage to muscle fibers. This is a controlled application of harm to a biological system. The result is a classic antifragile response. The body's repair process does not simply restore the muscle to its previous state. It overcompensates, rebuilding the fibers to be thicker and stronger to better handle similar future stressors. The system has not just recovered, it has improved directly because of the shock it endured. This leads to a more technical insight: the nonlinear response to stress. For a fragile object, the harm from a negative event is greater than the benefit from a positive one. Its response curve is concave. An antifragile system exhibits the opposite, a convex response, where the potential upside from randomness and volatility is significantly greater than the potential downside. This convexity is the mathematical signature of antifragility. If one were to graph the system's performance against the intensity of a stressor, the curve would accelerate upward. This demonstrates that while losses from negative shocks are contained, the gains from positive shocks are theoretically unlimited. This fundamental asymmetry is what allows an antifragile system to profit from the unknown. We can observe this principle in complex economic systems. A decentralized market economy, composed of many independent agents, is inherently antifragile. It is not designed to be stable. It is designed to adapt through a constant process of trial and error. The failure of individual businesses, while a localized negative event, is a crucial source of information for the system as a whole. Each bankruptcy is a small-scale experiment that teaches the market what is no longer viable, allowing resources to be reallocated more efficiently. This continuous, low-level stress strengthens the overall economic structure. A centrally planned economy, by contrast, often aims for robustness by suppressing such failures. It attempts to eliminate volatility. This very act of prevention removes the feedback mechanism of small-scale errors, making the entire system fragile and highly vulnerable to a single, large-scale, catastrophic miscalculation. This brings us to the core distinction between the two concepts. Resilience is about survival. Its primary goal is to withstand a shock and return to its original state of equilibrium. It is a principle of recovery to a known baseline. Antifragility is about evolution. It does not seek to simply return to normal. It utilizes the energy and information from stressors to transform, adapt, and emerge in a stronger, more capable state. It is a principle of growth beyond the original baseline. The profound significance of this distinction is revealed when we consider unpredictable, high-impact events, often termed black swans. These are rare occurrences that lie outside the scope of normal expectations and render conventional forecasting models useless. Robustness and resilience are insufficient defenses against such events. A robust system is optimized for known risks and often shatters when confronted with an unknown one. A resilient system may endure a black swan, but it is left weakened and focused on a long process of recovery. The antifragile system is the only one positioned to benefit from a black swan. It does not rely on prediction. Instead, its structure is configured to exploit the positive asymmetry of random events, gaining more from an unexpected positive shock than it loses from a negative one. This reframes the entire understanding of risk management, shifting the focus from avoidance to strategic exposure. This reveals a critical paradox at the heart of modern systems. The systematic suppression of volatility does not create stability. It creates the illusion of stability while accumulating hidden, catastrophic risk. This effort to eliminate all small stressors and random shocks makes the entire system more vulnerable to a single, large-scale failure. Consider the analogy of a managed forest. By suppressing every small, natural fire, forest managers prevent the clearing of underbrush and deadwood. For decades, the forest appears perfectly stable and safe. However, this suppressed volatility allows fuel to accumulate to an unprecedented degree, creating the conditions for an uncontrollable, catastrophic firestorm that destroys the entire ecosystem. The absence of small stressors guarantees an eventual systemic collapse. This principle extends directly to economic and health systems. Bailing out every minor financial institution prevents the market from correcting itself, concentrating risk in larger entities that become too big to fail. Similarly, an over-sanitized environment that avoids all exposure to microbes can weaken the immune system, making it more susceptible to severe autoimmune disorders. The attempt to engineer perfect safety generates the most profound form of fragility. To counteract this, one can apply principles of antifragile design. This is not about predicting future shocks, but about building systems that do not require such predictions. The primary goal is to structure a system so that the impact of failure is contained and potentially even beneficial. It is a practical application of the core concept. Key design elements include decentralization, which limits the cascade of failure across a network. Layering and redundancy ensure that the failure of one component does not cripple the entire system. A critical component is the barbell strategy, a portfolio that is hyper-conservative on one end to protect against ruin, and hyper-aggressive on the other to capitalize on high-impact, high-reward events. This structure benefits from positive black swans while being shielded from negative ones. Adopting this framework requires a fundamental reframing of our relationship with stress and error. In an anti-fragile system, negative events are not merely obstacles to be mitigated or endured. They are a necessary fuel for growth, adaptation, and evolution. They provide critical information that a robust system ignores and a fragile system cannot survive. Stressors test weaknesses. Errors reveal flaws. Volatility provides opportunities. From this perspective, risk is not something to be eliminated, but something to be intelligently engaged with. The system learns from every small break and every unexpected outcome, continuously recalibrating and improving its structure. This is the mechanism of evolution applied to system design. This brings us to the final essential distinction. Resilience is the capacity to withstand a shock and return to a previous state. It is the act of bouncing back to where you were before the disruption. the resilient object or system endures the impact and recovers its original form. Antifragility, however, is the property of bouncing forward. It uses the energy of the impact itself to propel the system to a new, stronger, and more capable state. It does not simply survive randomness and disorder. It requires them to thrive. This distinction reframes the objective from mere survival to evolutionary advancement. This understanding reframes the objective of system design. The goal is not to build a system that perfectly predicts and withstands every shock. It is to build a system that has a positive, asymmetrical exposure to volatility, meaning it gains more from favorable surprises than it loses from unfavorable ones. A core principle for achieving this is the barbell strategy. This involves allocating the majority of resources to extremely safe, robust assets, while dedicating a small, controlled portion to high-risk, high-reward ventures. This structure minimizes downside exposure while retaining unlimited upside potential from unexpected events. In practice, this means avoiding the middle ground of medium-risk strategies, which are often the most fragile. These strategies are vulnerable to miscalculation and negative black swan events without offering the explosive gains of high-risk options or the security of robust ones. The barbell configuration creates a system that is fundamentally prepared for randomness. This strategy extends beyond financial portfolios. One can structure a career with a stable primary profession, the robust end of the barbell, while pursuing speculative, creative projects on the side. This creates a personal system that is resilient to economic downturns, yet positioned to capitalize on unforeseen opportunities. Further analysis reveals a more fundamental mechanism. Fragility is often a direct consequence of opacity and complex, hidden interdependencies. When the internal workings of a system are difficult to understand, its vulnerabilities remain concealed until a stressor exposes them catastrophically. The 2008 financial crisis serves as a prime example of this principle in action. Conversely, anti-fragile systems thrive on transparency and direct, intelligible feedback loops. They are often simpler and decentralized. Mistakes in such a system are localized, visible, and provide immediate, valuable information for adaptation and improvement. This makes the entire system stronger over time. This observation provides a critical insight into the nature of risk itself. The anti-fragile approach is not about predicting the future. It is about positioning a system so that the errors of prediction are not fatal, and may even be beneficial. It is an acceptance of the inherent unpredictability of complex environments. This reframes the entire discipline of risk management. Traditional models focus on minimizing volatility and avoiding failure. An anti-fragile framework, however, recognizes that volatility is a source of information and energy. The objective shifts from preventing errors to ensuring the system learns and profits from them. A key method for implementing this is via negativa, or improvement through subtraction. Often, the most effective way to make a system anti-fragile is not by adding complex new features or redundant layers. It is by systematically identifying and removing sources of fragility. This involves eliminating dependencies, reducing debt, simplifying processes, and removing components that introduce hidden risks. By subtracting what is weak, what remains is inherently more robust and better positioned to gain from the inevitable disorder of the world. This is a practical, actionable path toward building antifragility.